I'm Nate Peterson with the Vail Daily, and I'm here with Nadia Guerriero, who's the new Chief Operating Officer at Beaver Creek. Nadia, thanks for taking the time to meet with us.
Thanks.
So, you grew up in Colorado. Was it your goal to get back to Colorado?
You know, I don't think it was ever specifically a goal, but I would say once I became the GM at North Star in 2016, it was something that I knew was a pretty high possibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Experiences growing up in Colorado, where'd you go? Where'd you learn to ski? And
I learned to ski at Eldora.
oh, just like me?
Yeah, I learned to ski at Eldora when I was 10. It was actually before we lived in Boulder. So when we first moved to Colorado from Michigan, we lived in a town called Masonville.
Okay.
Which is kind of in between Fort Collins and Loveland. It's like on the backside of Horsetooth Reservoir.
Yeah.
And so we were living there. My aunt was living in Boulder. And so we would come up and go to lessons at Eldora. We went to night lessons at Eldora, and we would just stay with my aunt, and then head back. And that was probably, that was like in the year before we moved to Boulder. But yeah, we'd go to night lessons, my sister and I was 10, she was 8. And I think we were the only, they must have done kids and adults together because it was just the two of us and then a bunch of adults. And we had been cross-country skiing our whole life until then. And thank goodness my parents finally put us in downhill alpine lessons. But we just, we would just go straight down. And the instructor would be yelling, "Turn, turn." And we thought, what for? Why?
What's the move home been like? I know your parents still live on the Front Range.
Yeah.
What's it been like coming back and move to the Vail Valley?
It's been great. There's this level of familiarity for me. As a family, we didn't spend a ton of time up here, but I did have family in the Valley growing up on my dad's side. And so there's just this level of familiarity. And because our company is headquartered on the Front Range, I actually was traveling back once a month or every other month. And so I feel like I would always still call Colorado home. Like, okay. It's always still home. And so it's been great. And I've gotten to see my parents. My mom was just up last weekend for a couple days. And yeah, it's been really comfortable to move back. And I'm thrilled to be here.
You've taken a circuitous, non-traditional path to resort management, I would say, and you out of college, you worked in athletics in college, you represented athletes after college, then you got into events, and then into resort operations. What did you see yourself doing when you were in college at CU Boulder after you moved back from Hawaii?
I just always knew I wanted to work in sports.
Okay.
That was always my goal, and I didn't know what that looked like or what it was going to be like. I played sports growing up, but I was not a star athlete. I didn't go to college to play sports or anything, but I loved sports. Everything about it, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the dedication, the commitment, everything about it. And I really like team sports too. I like being part of a team, and I especially like being part of a winning team. And so I knew I always wanted to work in sports, so that was kind of the goal, but it wasn't real specific. And I honestly have just kind of followed opportunities as they've come along. I've worked hard in every job that I've had, which has provided opportunities, but it's been this path of like, oh, yeah, there's an opportunity, I'm going to try that. And so that's how it was. And so, if you were to ask me if I ever saw myself running a ski resort or even working in the ski resort business, no. It was definitely not something that I ever thought was going to be in my future.
You worked with Olympians like Johnny Mosley and Peekaboo Street, and then you also worked with action sports stars like Shaun White and Tanner Hall. What is your wildest sort of had to be there story from those days when in the early 2000s when action sports was exploding and the X Games sports were getting picked up by the Olympics? Just crazy stuff, or in terms of trips or film shoots or X Games parties. Or
yeah, there was quite a few of those, and probably one X Games party in particular that has come back to the forefront of my memory because as we most recently acquired Peak Resorts,
okay.
and Mount Snow is part of that family, part of our family now. And before X Games was at Aspen,
yeah.
It was at Mount Snow for a couple of years, and so we would go to Mount Snow and rent condos and stay kind of on the golf course. And there was only 2 restaurants to go eat at that time, and there was this place called the Barn, which was where most of the parties were and where the music acts were. And so we were getting ready to go to this party. We were going to go hear some music and go to an X Games party, and we were all really excited, but we were going to see this artist like that was not very well known, and it was he was a rap artist, and we were like, okay, yeah, let's go, and we'll go see him. And I don't know, the barn maybe holds, I don't know, 200, 250 people,
okay.
Maybe. I mean, it's a small venue. But the act that night was Eminem. Yeah, and we were all like, oh, this guy's pretty good.
Who were you with? I mean, who's your roster of athletes at this thing?
Yeah, at that time, I mean, I was working with a lot of skiers, so Tanner Hall and C.R. Johnson and Evan Rapps.
Right.
It was really like big air was the discipline at the time. I was with Johnny. I mean, I was mostly with Johnny, but I had become friends with all of those guys. So I was representing Johnny at the time. It was kind of when he was making that transition into action sports. He started doing the big air comps and things like that.
With those guys, Tanner Hall, there's some crazy stories. I mean, were you kind of the room mom with these guys, making sure they showed up on time? And
Yeah, I was. And yeah, that's a big part of the job as an athlete manager and agent, is making sure that your athletes show up for their commitments on time. And that was a lot of it. And yeah, I was a little bit older than them, so I was the room mom. I'll never forget, I was also probably a lot healthier than them. I thought about what I was eating and stuff like that. And so I used to eat...
Not living off Red Bull and Monster Energy drinks. And...
Yeah, I used to eat this cereal every morning, and they started just calling me Kashi. And that was their nickname for me, because that's what I would eat in the morning.
Yeah. Resort operations used to be an old boys club. It used to be, old white guys running these resorts. How do we get to this spot where two women are running two of the signature mountains of the world's leading resort company at Vail and Beaver Creek Resort?
Well, I think it's intentional, and our company believes in developing leaders and investing in leaders, and I think, and we also have made an intentional commitment to diversity in leadership, and so providing opportunities for women. So I think it's intentional, and I also think that, it's inevitable too. I mean, there's no question that women leaders are as effective and sometimes more effective than male leaders as well.
You worked press boxes at the University of Colorado, covering with the CU football team. Did you ever run into any sort of situations where, you're a woman, you're not supposed to be here?
It's hard to say. I probably did. I just had a personality where I either wasn't aware of it. I certainly wasn't going to let anything stop me. But yeah, I was going into, there was one time, so I worked the sidelines at the CU basketball games, and one of my jobs was to go into the men's locker room and gather quotes from the coach at the press conference afterwards. And yeah, there probably was some sideways glances and some other things. If comments were made, I didn't hear them. I knew I had a job to do, and that was the most important thing. And so that's what I focused on.
You're replacing Beth Howard here at Beaver Creek, who's going over to Vail. What did Beth tell you as you settle into this role? What advice did you get from her and going forward?
Yeah, so I've got the benefit of knowing Beth pretty well, because, well, when she was at North Star, I reported to her. So she was my boss at North Star for a couple of years, and then I followed her at North Star because she was the GM for 2 years before my 3 there. And so I get to follow her again here. And so, part of the benefit of that is that Beth leaves things in really good condition. She's good at relationships, and she's a really strong leader. And so, yeah, when we talked about it, I think we talked a little bit about some of the similarities, but there's a lot of differences here, and kind of the importance and value of the stakeholder environment here, and how to think about that and how to navigate it. And yeah, I definitely spent a bunch of time with her, as well as Chris Jarno, and talking about where everything is in terms of relationship and business here.
You're kind of at the center. You work for Vail Resorts, but there's the Beaver Creek Resort Company. You've got the Merchants Association. The resort company is an HOA that works with the Resort Association that has municipal services.
Right.
So one of those leadership roles that you're taking on is getting everyone to sort of work well together. How do you approach that challenge?
Right. Well, it's about alignment. which anyone would tell you. And so I think, yeah, various people do that differently. For me, it's about communication. Making sure that we are all communicating, and then also making sure that we're not just communicating, but really listening too, so that we are listening for understanding, and we're all letting each other's voices be heard, and kind of talking about and thinking about, okay, these decisions that we're making, how do they ladder up to, and how do they support the vision for where we're going as a resort collectively together.
What is that vision? What can people expect this year? Changes or improvements to the resort, and then also looking long term.
Right. Well, we're our pursuit is to be the world's best luxury family resort, and so we do that through our legendary attention to detail, our rarefied experiences, and then acting as perpetual hosts for all of our guests that come here. And so a few things that we're excited about and have been working on is a complete renovation and remodel of our children's ski school.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from the minute you walk in the door till the time the children leave to get on the snow. So, and it's not only cosmetic; it's also the flow. And so, how do our families and parents experience the check-in process, the equipment boot-up process, everything until they get on the snow. So that's something we're really excited about, and that supports our, I think Beaver Creek is the best place to come learn to ski, and so it supports that, and getting children and kids in young to learn to ski is, I know I'm a benefit of that, and so being family friendly in that way. Another thing that we're excited about is we've been focusing on the village and refreshing and revitalizing the village. So the entrance to the village, the iconic entrance to the village with the covered bridge, is going over is having a bit of a makeover right now. We're doing a complete refresh of the bus shelter there, and so there'll be a fire pit and some seating areas, and that will really highlight the natural beauty of Beaver Creek as well. Some of our merchants have done some major remodels. Base Area Sports, or Base Mountain Sports, Blue Moose Pizza, Hooked has a new extended patio. So we're really excited about some of those things, as well as programming a lot of family-friendly events, starting with Birds of Prey coming up the weekend after Thanksgiving. It'll be our 20th time producing and hosting that event. And then we have been working up on the hill on some snowmaking. So we've installed some snowmaking up in Red Buffalo Park. So, having a top to bottom, 3,300 acres of top to bottom skiing on opening day, and having a beginner and intermediate product, so that we can teach those ski school lessons is going to be a big thing for us this year.
The McCoy Park thing has been approved. What's the rollout for that?
Yeah, so we've been spending,
which is more intermediate and beginner level terrain, right? It's more,
Yeah, it's intermediate beginner level terrain, and it's really this it's this secluded sanctuary for where the family can really go and ski together and connect and be out in a bowl that's where you don't see a lot of, you see really none other than Mamie's. You don't see any infrastructure or anything. You feel like kind of feels like you're in the backcountry a little bit, but you're at a ski resort. There's no cross traffic of people trying to get to blacks or any of that type of stuff. And so we have been spending most of the summer and a good portion of this fall doing a lot of planning for that. Lift line surveying, talking to lift manufacturers, looking at, we're putting in the lift there, and we know kind of basically what kind it's going to be, but talking about scheduling and planning and how do we do that. And we've got our elk calving closure out there that goes until July 1st, and so once that lifts, we've got to really get busy and work fast and furious out there to get it going. But it's 250 acres, 17 trails of groomable glades. And it's going to be a really amazing experience, and it completes our parks collection for now. So there's Hay Meadow down low, Red Buffalo where you can go explore, and then McCoy Park where families can really connect.
Doing this, how often do you actually get some time to get on the lifts and go take a few runs, or get out with your daughter even? When you are running a resort.
Yeah, I make it a point. I love to ski, and so it's a passion of mine, and it's important for me to have that constant reminder of why I work so hard and why I do this. And so to have that experience and get out there, to have it personally, but also to connect with guests. I mean, I will often go out, by myself and just ride the chairlift and talk with guests and find out how their day is going and what they like and don't like. And so, yeah, I mean, I try and get out at, 2 to 3 times a week, for sure. I mean, we're not talking full days, but I definitely get out as much as I can.
Blast some runs.
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes here because, it's not only Beaver Creek here, but Bachelor Gulch and Arrowhead. And so, but I get out, I mean, I also make a point, I have a clear schedule on Saturdays and I ski all day Saturday, and I get out with my family a bit too, usually kind of Saturdays, Sundays, and whatever other day I can.
Now, when you're working at North Star, it was acquired by Vail Resorts. Be honest, what was your initial reaction when you were acquired by the mothership, so to speak?
So it was October 25th, 2010. So we're coming up on the 9-year anniversary. And I was I was excited, and I'll honestly tell you, this was my thought, like, this could be pretty good. This could work out well for me. This feels a little bit like coming home. So that was my kind of coming home moment. And because I knew Vail Resorts, I knew the company, I knew Vail, and I knew this area, and I was from Colorado, and so I thought, yeah, I'm gonna stick around and see how this goes. Obviously it went pretty well for me, but a lot of my friends, yeah, they were like, we're out of here, and they went to other places, and yeah, I think part of that too was I had a level of experience, life experience and work experience to kind of know that, like, this could be good. I was married at the time. I didn't have a family yet, but I thought, I'm going to see how this works out.
One of the biggest challenges in this business is filling out a seasonal workforce, especially in places where housing's tight, cost of living is high. How do you approach the challenge of filling out a staff every year?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and it's not a challenge that's unique to this area, right? We see it in a lot of our resort communities, and so we really think about it from the complete employee experience. And so, it's not just about getting a paycheck, but what other things do we have that we can offer our employees? And it's a lot. I mean, we have a robust benefits package, everything from 401k to health and dental and even legal insurance, should they need that. We have something I'm proud of with our company is we have a employee assistance program where employees and even their roommates and their family can get some sessions with a therapist,
sure.
For their mental and behavioral health if they need that. And then we do a lot of employee events. We do a lot of things to really support employees. We try and throw parties and feed them as much as possible. So I think having said all that, when we're talking to employees and when we're going out there, we talk about the whole experience. It's not that you're just going to come here and for 144 days or however many days within that you're going to work, that you're just going to be, bussing tables or filling lifts and or scanning tickets. It's really, you're going to come here and you're going to have a complete experience. You're going to meet friends. We have leadership development all the way down to the frontline staff, if they would like that. And so for us it's really about talking about everything that we offer as a company for employees and showing them the benefit of working for us versus maybe making a little bit more and working at a fast food restaurant or something like that.
What's your best advice for someone like you once were coming into this company about rising up the ranks?
Yeah, I tell anyone who asks me that to get out and experience as much as you can, especially if you're unsure what direction you really want to go. Experience our mountain dining, our restaurants, experience banquets, experience being a lift operator, do a shift with mountain safety, get out and learn as much as you can about the business and also about the operations, but also raise your hand, volunteers, take things on, check out all the opportunities we have for volunteers, which are a lot, everything from Epic Promise Day to, especially during the holidays, we're always looking to have people fill in areas that is not their primary job.
What's your favorite part of this job?
My favorite part of this job is the people, for sure. I love working with our employees. I love seeing our employees, be successful, set goals and be successful. I even love, the part about coaching and development. I think that's a really fun part of my job and something that I have found a little bit of of skill in, I guess. And I love skiing. I mean, so seeing our guests come here and have the experience that I know I get to have and that our employees have, and just seeing the smiles on their faces and knowing that they are having experiences that maybe they've never had, or experiences that are different from ones they've had before. So,
what's the biggest challenge facing the industry as a whole, the skiing industry?
I think one of the biggest challenges we have is continuing to attract skiers, and snowboarders, and making sure that doing our part to bring kids and new people that are new to the sport and new to the industry into this sport that we all know and love, right? And some of that, one of the ways that we're thinking about that is the diversity of our portfolio, right? Is being able to talk with and access large populations of people, and even people in more urban areas like our Mount Brighton and Wilmot. These are lower vertical type of mountains, and these are people who are passionate about skiing, and then we bring them to a place like Vail or Beaver Creek and really blow their minds, right? And so then they're hooked forever. But I think I think that one of the challenges is continuing to grow and develop new skiers and snowboarders.
What should people know about you outside of this huge job that you have?
Yeah, that's a good right. This is my big life. I think what I talk about a bit, and what is very true for me, is that my family is incredibly important to me. I have a husband and a daughter, and when I'm not here, I'm with them, and I really try and balance as much as possible, spending time with them and fulfilling my obligations and my goals within this job. And then the other thing is, health and wellness is incredibly important to me, and I think that's both physical, mental, spiritual, health and wellness. It's important to me. I know that if I didn't focus on that and prioritize and make time for that, I wouldn't be effective in my role, and so I support that and encourage that in the people I work with and the people around me, my friends, as well. So yeah, I practice a lot of yoga.
What's it? I know that about you, that you're a yogi, and what's a typical day for you? I mean, when you wake up, and obviously that probably changes from season to season.
Yeah,
but
a typical day for me is I wake up super early. At one point in my life, I thought, waking up before 6 a.m. is just like, that's unhuman. Well, I wake up well before 6 a.m. now.
So what time?
Yeah, 5:30.
Okay.
5:30. And I get up and go down into my yoga space at home, and I meditate a bit, and I do some stretching. I like to get the blood flowing a little bit, and move the body a little bit just in the morning. It's something I've been doing for a long time. So I will meditate. I'll do some stretching and movement, and then a handful of sun salutations, and kind of just get my mind and body right for the day. And then it kind of goes from there. All the morning stuff at home, that between breakfast and getting my daughter ready for school and all that type of stuff. So
okay.
It's important. I get the time before work at home with my daughter, and then I get the time after work and after school.
And that, I'm sure that recharges you.
It does, absolutely. Yeah, I really make a point to be present, not just physically present, but mentally present when I get home.